the alien girl's whisper. The market was loud and busy, filled with strange voices, glowing signs, and the smell of smoke and spices. Jack, a quiet human traveler, walked through the dusty outpost with his bag over his shoulder and a tired look in his eyes. He was just passing through like always, not looking for trouble, not looking for anyone. But then, someone tugged on his coat. He turned around and saw a small alien girl standing there, her eyes large and glassy, her skin a soft blue with glowing freckles like stars. She looked no older than 10, wearing a thin shawl and no shoes. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Human, my mother cries every night since father left." Jack blinked, unsure what to say. He looked around, expecting someone to pull a prank, but no one else was watching. The girl stepped closer, her voice quieter now. "She begs for love again. Please come with me." Jack didn't know this child, and he had never been to this sector before, but something in her eyes, something broken and honest, made him stop walking away. "Who are you?" he asked gently. "My name is Luma," she said. "My father was human like you. He left us, and now my mother is fading. She needs help." Jack frowned. "Why me?" "Because no one else listens," Luma whispered, looking down. "And you stopped for me?" Jack sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. This wasn't part of his plan, but he couldn't just leave the girl alone and hurting. He nodded slowly. "All right, take me to your mother." Luma smiled, a small weak smile, and led him down narrow paths between old metal shacks and glass domes. The city faded behind them, and soon they were walking into dry land filled with sand and forgotten machines. After an hour of walking, they reached a strange hut built from cracked glass and twisted metal, standing alone by a dry riverbed. "This is our home," Luma said quietly. Jack stepped inside, and the air smelled like flowers and dust. Sitting on a soft mat in the center was a tall alien woman with long silver hair and tired golden eyes. She looked up, surprised, then hopeful, then confused. You're not him," she said. Jack shook his head. "No, I'm just someone your daughter found." The woman nodded slowly, her shoulders falling. "Of course. Hope always plays tricks." "My name's Jack," he said, kneeling down. "And you?" "Celia," she replied softly. "Luma's mother, once married to a human who promised to stay." Her voice cracked and she looked away. Jack saw old photos on the wall, one with a smiling human man holding a baby alien girl. Both of them happy, that's him. Jack asked. Celia nodded. "Marcus. He was a soldier, I think. He never told me much. One day he kissed me goodbye and said he'd be back by morning." She paused, breathing deep. "He never came back." Luma sat next to her mother. Holding her hand, Jack felt heavy in his chest. "I'm sorry," he said. Celia smiled sadly. "You don't need to be, but thank you." Jack stood up, looking around the hut. "Why did you bring me here, really?" he asked Luma. She looked up at him. "Because you're human. And maybe you understand how to fix what he broke." Jack didn't answer, because he didn't know how to fix anything. That night, Celia offered Jack a place to sleep near the window. The stars above the cracked glass roof blinked softly and the wind whispered outside. Jack was just about to close his eyes when he noticed something. Strange marks were glowing faintly on the wall, letters written in old human code. He sat up, walking over slowly. The words said, "Sector 9, they took me. Forgive me." Jack's heart pounded. He called out softly, "Celia, did you write this?" She sat up, confused. "What? These words," Jack said, pointing. "They weren't here before." Celia came over, staring in shock. "No," she whispered. "I've never seen this before." Luma came too, eyes wide. "That's his writing," she said quietly. "It looks like his letters from long ago." Jack stared at the message again. Something wasn't right. If Marcus left willingly, why would he leave this behind? And why now? Jack didn't know the answer, but deep down he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. Something else was waiting in the dark, something that didn't want the truth to be found. Morning light poured through, the broken glass roof of the hut painting the floor with golden rays. Jack sat near the wall, still staring at the glowing human letters that had faded by sunrise. Celia brewed something warm in a cup, her hands shaking as she poured it into a wooden bowl. "Here," she said gently, offering it to Jack. "It's not much, but it helps the cold." Jack nodded and took the bowl, sipping slowly. The taste was sweet and strange, like honey mixed with dust. "You sure you didn't see that message before?" he asked again. Celia shook her head, her eyes red from a sleepless night. "I clean these walls every day," she whispered. Nothing was ever written there. Jack looked at Luma, who sat quietly, drawing circles in the sand with her finger. She hadn't spoken much since last night. Jack stood and walked to the photo of Marcus, the smiling human in a dusty uniform, holding baby Luma in his arms. "You said he was a soldier," Jack said, turning to Celia. "Did he ever tell you which branch? Which war?" Celia shook her head again. "No. He always said he wasn't allowed to speak of it. But he would. Wake up at night screaming." Jack frowned. "PTSD, maybe." Celia tilted her head. "I don't know that word." Jack knelt down and sighed. "It means he saw terrible things. Things that never left his mind." Celia looked away, her voice trembling. "And then he left us." Outside, the wind howled low, carrying the sound of footsteps. Celia stiffened. "The villagers," she said quickly, standing and rushing to close the cloth curtain that covered the doorway. "Why would they come here?" Jack asked. "Because they hate me," she replied, her voice cold now. "They say I cursed our people by loving a human." Jack stepped toward the door, but Celia grabbed his arm. "Please, let me speak to them." Moments later, voices echoed. "Outside the hut, human blood poisons our land," one said loudly. "She brought war to our sky," another hissed. "And now she brings another outsider." Jack peeked through the curtain and saw 5 villagers, all tall with dark cloaks and glowing staffs. One raised his hand, and the hut shook slightly as if the ground beneath it had groaned. Celia stepped outside, standing in front of them with, "No fear, only pain. You have no right," she said calmly. "This is my home." "You break tradition," one of them spat, "and now you invite another alien into our soil." "He is not the same," she answered. "He only came to help." "Then send him away," they demanded, "or we will decide what to do with him." Jack stepped outside before she could stop him. "I'm not looking for trouble," he said, holding his hands up. "But if you touch her or the girl again, I won't walk away so easy." The villagers looked at each other. Then the lead speaker turned and walked away, saying, "We warned you." The others followed him, disappearing into the sand mist. Celia stood frozen, her hands shaking again. Jack looked at her. "Do they always come like that?" "Not for many seasons," she whispered. "But your presence has made them angry." Jack looked back at the hut, then at the dried riverbed. "Why'd you build your home out here?" he asked. "Because no one else would live near us," Celia said with a tired smile. "Too much shame." Jack walked back inside and sat again. That night, the stars were hidden by clouds. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a rare sound on this planet. As they ate dinner, Luma finally spoke again. "Will you leave too?" she asked Jack, her eyes staring at the flame in the small heater. Jack looked at her. "Do you want me to?" Luma shook her head. "No, but everyone leaves us." Jack sighed and looked at Celia. "I want to find out what happened to Marcus," he said. "That message on the wall, it means something." Celia looked down, her voice soft. "I stopped hoping long ago." "But you didn't forget him," Jack said. "You still look at his picture every day?" Celia smiled sadly. "Because some wounds never heal." Later that night, Jack couldn't sleep again. He walked outside and looked at the sky. Lightning flashed far away, and for a moment, he saw something strange in the clouds. A ship, huge and dark, hovering silently before vanishing again into the mist. Jack's heart beat faster. "What the hell was that?" he whispered. He ran inside and woke Celia. "Have you seen ships flying over at night?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Sometimes. Always the same one. No lights, no sound." Jack stared at her. "Marcus might still be alive." And someone doesn't want us to know that. Celia looked into his eyes. You're not like the others, she said. No, Jack replied, and I'm not leaving until we find the truth. The next morning, Jack woke early. He couldn't stop thinking about the strange ship in the clouds and the fading human message on the wall. He needed answers, and he had a feeling he was getting close to something hidden for too long. Celia made breakfast in silence while Luma sat near the door, drawing patterns in the sand again. Jack looked at both of them, then said, I need to visit the ruins near the old space tower. Celia turned, concern on her face. Why there? Because if Marcus left a message, maybe he left more, Jack replied. He might have used that tower for secret communication. Celia looked down, her voice soft. That place is cursed. Many who go there never come back. Jack nodded. I'll be careful. He packed a small bag, took a scanner from his belt, and headed out into the desert alone. The air was dry and heavy, and the ruins lay in the distance like broken bones buried in sand. When he reached the tower, the place was quiet. Too quiet, no wind, no animals, no sign of life, just broken steel, fallen walls, and pieces of Earth technology half buried in the ground. He walked carefully, stepping over cracked panels and wires. The scanner in his hand beeped once. Faint human energy signature. Jack followed the signal down into a half-collapsed room, the walls covered in dirt and ash. There, behind a broken panel, he found it, a small device glowing dimly. It was a message. Log still working after all this time. Jack sat down, wiped the dust off, and pressed play. A flickering hologram appeared. Marcus. His voice came through, weak and tired. If anyone finds this, I didn't leave by choice. I was taken. Jack's breath caught. Marcus continued. The locals thought I betrayed them. But it wasn't me. There's a faction, deep underground. They want war with Earth. They used me as bait. The hologram glitched, but more. Words came through. I love you, Celia. Tell Luma I'm sorry. I'm alive, but not free. Then the message ended. Jack sat there in silence. He had expected a clue. But not this. Marcus was alive, and someone had kidnapped him. But why? Jack grabbed the log and turned to leave, but he wasn't alone. From the shadows, a figure stepped out, tall, hooded, with glowing green eyes and metal skin. You shouldn't be here, the figure said. Jack raised his hands. I'm just passing through. You found the message, the figure hissed. Now you must forget it. Without warning, the figure lunged at him. Jack dodged, rolled, and pulled a pulse pistol from his belt. One shot. Missed. The second shot hit the figure's shoulder. Sparks flew, and it let out a screeching cry before vanishing into smoke. Jack didn't wait. He ran back toward the hut, sand kicking up behind him. When he reached Celia's home, he was out of breath, covered in dust, but alive. Celia opened the door, panic in her eyes. What happened? Jack handed her the message log. Marcus was taken. He didn't leave you. He's still alive. Celia fell to her knees, tears already running down her cheeks. Luma ran to her side, hugging her tightly. Jack looked out the window, hand still, shaking. There's a group, he said. An underground faction that wants war with Earth. They took him and used him like a weapon. Celia stood slowly, her face pale. Then we must find him. Jack nodded. Yes, but we're not safe anymore. Someone followed me. They attacked. Suddenly the window shattered. A burning rock flew inside and crashed into the floor, spreading flames across the mat. Jack grabbed a cloth and beat the fire out, coughing through the smoke. Outside. Go. He shouted. They ran out of the hut just as more rocks came flying through the air from the cliffs above. The villagers had returned, and this time they brought fire. Jack helped Celia and Luma hide behind a boulder. We can't stay here, Celia said, her voice shaking. They want us gone. Jack looked toward the distance where the ruins still smoked. No, he said. They want the truth buried, but we're going to dig it out. Celia looked at him, hope shining in her tired eyes for the first time in years. Luma held Jack's hand tightly. Promise you won't leave us. Jack nodded. I promise. We're going to bring your father home. The desert wind howled through the night, carrying the smell of smoke and burning wood. Celia's glass hut was gone, turned to ash and broken metal. Jack stood on a hill overlooking the destruction, his jaw tight, fists clenched, behind. Celia sat with Luma under a large rock ledge. Wrapped in a thermal cloak, they had nowhere else to go. The villagers had made it clear. This family was no longer welcome. They'll be back, Jack said, and next time they won't just throw fire. Celia looked up at him. Then we run? Jack shook his head. No, we fight back, but smarter. He reached into his bag and pulled out the message log he had taken from the ruins. I think Marcus left more than just this, he said. This was just one clue. He pointed toward the horizon where old Earth ruins lay buried under sand and time. There's a military outpost from the first Earth colony war near the canyon, Jack said. Marcus may have hidden more evidence there. Celia nodded slowly, her eyes tired but sharp. Then we go at dawn. Before sunrise they set off, Jack, Celia, and little Luma walking across the dusty plains. The journey was long and hot, but they pushed forward. By midday they reached the edge of the canyon. The outpost stood below, buried halfway in rock and dust. Its flag still barely visible under the rubble. Jack led the way down, using old ropes and caution. The place was silent, broken, but not empty. Inside, the walls were covered in scorch marks, and the smell of rust filled the air. Jack's scanner beeped again. Another human signal. He followed it down a narrow hallway and into a locked chamber. With effort, he forced the old door open. Inside was a small terminal, blinking faintly, still alive after all these years. Jack powered it up, and an encrypted message appeared on the screen. Password required, it said. Celia stepped closer and whispered, "Try Luma." Jack typed it in. The screen unlocked. Another video appeared. Marcus again, older, thinner, but his eyes still full of love. "If you're seeing this," Marcus said, "then I failed to escape, but I need you to know the truth." He looked down, then back up. "They took me because I knew something, a secret about Sector 9, a hidden prison used by rogue factions to control humans who stayed behind after the war." Jack's eyes widened. "Earth never knew," Marcus continued. "They think we disappeared or retired, but we were taken, made to work, made to suffer." The video flickered. "I tried to contact Celia, but they blocked everything. I miss her. I miss Luma. I hope they're safe." The video ended. Silence filled the chamber. Jack slowly backed away, the truth hitting him hard. Marcus was a prisoner. Not by accident, but as part of a cover-up. "We have to get to Sector 9, Jack said firmly. "It's the only way." Celia touched the screen, tears in her eyes. "He never gave up on us." Luma hugged her mother tightly, saying nothing, just holding on. As they left the chamber, something moved in the shadows. Jack turned just in time to see a metal orb floating down the hallway. "Drone," he shouted. It scanned them with a red beam and let out a sharp alarm. Jack pulled out his blaster and shot it midair, but it was too late. "They know we're here now," Jack said, grabbing both Celia and Luma. "We need to go. Now." They raced out of the outpost and up the canyon wall. By the time they reached the top, dark shapes were rising in the sky behind them. Black ships with glowing red engines. "They're tracking us," Jack growled. "And they'll keep coming." Celia looked at him afraid. "Then where do we go?" Jack pointed toward the trade port where he first met Luma. "There's one person who might help us, an alien smuggler named Kethos." Celia frowned. "Kethos? He's dangerous?" "I know," Jack replied, "but he has connections, and ships. He might know how to get into Sector 9. They moved quickly, using side paths and old tunnels to reach the port. Jack paid a trader to sneak them through the gates, and by evening they were in the Undercity where the law didn't reach. They entered a dark club filled with smoke, noise, and alien music. At the back, sitting on a throne of broken parts, was Kethos, the smuggler, a tall, scaly alien with one cybernetic eye and a deep scar down his cheek. "Well, well," Kethos said, grinning. "Look what the desert dragged in. A human, a widow, and a child." Jack stepped forward. "I need a way into Sector 9. Kethos laughed. "That place is locked tighter than a star vault. What makes you think I can help? Jack pulled out the data drive from the ruins and tossed it on the table. Because Marcus was taken there, and I think you were part of it. Kethos's grin faded. He picked up the drive, looked at it, then looked at Jack. You're braver than you look, human, Kethos said slowly. But, if you want answers, you'll have to fight for them. The smuggler Kethos stared at Jack in silence. His cybernetic eye glowed red, scanning the human's face for weakness. Jack didn't flinch. Celia stood behind him, arms around Luma, watching the dangerous room filled with all kinds of criminals. Aliens. With scars, metal arms, and glowing tattoos, Jack knew they were being watched, but he also knew this was their only chance. I need a way into Sector 9, Jack repeated. That's where Marcus is, and I won't leave without him. Kethos leaned back on his throne of broken machine parts. He smirked, then waved a hand. A small platform rose from the floor in the center of the room. Then earn it, Kethos said. Fight for your answer. The crowd cheered. Fight? Celia whispered. Jack, you don't have to do this. Jack looked at her, then at Luma, who held tightly to her mother's arm. I do, he said softly. For both of you. Kethos snapped his fingers. A large gate opened from the side of the arena and a massive alien beast stepped out. It was like a mix between a lizard and a bear, with metal claws and thick armor on its back. The crowd roared louder. Jack stepped onto the platform, pulse gun in hand, but Kethos raised his claw. No weapons, he said with a cruel smile. Only your mind and your fists. Jack's heart raced, but he threw the gun aside. The beast snarled and charged, the ground shaking with every step. Jack dodged left, rolled under its claws, and grabbed a loose pipe from the ground. The beast turned, slashing wildly, nearly catching Jack in the chest. He struck its side, but the pipe bent like paper. The crowd laughed. Jack backed away, eyes scanning the room, looking for anything he could use. That's when he saw a loose wire sparking from the floor panel near the wall. He ran, sliding beneath the beast's swing, and grabbed the wire. As the beast lunged, Jack shoved the sparking cable against its neck plate. Electricity surged through the creature's body. It roared in pain, staggered, and fell with a crash. Smoke rose from its mouth. The room fell silent. Then, all at once, the crowd cheered louder than ever. Kethos stood and clapped slowly. Impressive, he said. You humans always surprise me. Jack limped off the platform, breathing hard, his arm bruised and his shirt torn. Kethos waved him over. He took the data drive Jack had given him earlier and plugged it into a strange device. A map appeared, showing several star systems, and a blinking red point labeled S9. Restricted zone. There it is, Kethos said, pointing. Sector 9. A prison world run by the Shadow Confederates. Deep underground, beyond any laws. Jack leaned closer. How do I get there? Kethos grinned. That's the hard part. It's not a place you can just visit. You either go as a prisoner, or you sneak in with someone already on their list. Jack frowned. Do you know anyone? Kethos nodded slowly. I do, but the cost is high. Tell me, Jack said firmly. Kethos pointed to a small cargo ship parked outside the building. There's a pilot named Varn. He's insane but brave. He makes supply runs to the outer ring near Sector 9. Convince him and you'll have your ride. Jack turned to go, but Kethos called out one last warning. One more thing, human. If you go in there, there's no promise you'll come out again. Jack didn't look back. Then I'll make my own promise, he said. I'll bring Marcus back, or I won't come back at all. Outside, night had fallen, and the stars shone bright above the polluted sky of the trade city. Celia walked beside Jack, quiet for a while. You could have died, she said finally. I know, Jack answered. But you didn't, she said, looking at him. Because you believe in him. Jack stopped and turned to her. I believe in all of you. No one should be left behind. Not him, not you, not Luma. Luma smiled, a small but hopeful smile, the first real one in days. At the edge of the landing dock, they found Varn, the pilot. He was short, wide, with a metal plate on one side. Of his head and a long scar down his face, he drank something green from a bottle and laughed at nothing. You're Varn? Jack asked. Who's askin'? The pilot replied with a slurred voice. I need a ride to the outer ring, Jack said. I'm going to Sector 9. Varn stopped laughing. He looked Jack up and down, then looked at Celia and Luma. Brave. Or stupid, Varn said. Probably, both. All right, I'll take you. But once we reach orbit, you're on your own. Jack nodded. Deal. They shook hands, the ship's engines fired up, and as the cargo bay opened, Jack looked back at the trade post one last time. No turning. Back now. The journey to Sector 9 had begun. The stars looked cold from orbit. Jack stood beside the old pilot Varn, staring out the window of the cargo ship as a dark world spun below them. It was Sector 9. The prison planet wasn't glowing like other cities in space. It was hidden behind a thick layer of gray clouds, surrounded by old defense satellites and dark towers sticking up from the surface like spikes. Is it as bad as they say? Jack asked quietly. Varn snorted. Worse. The kind of place you only leave in a box. Celia held Luma close in the back of the ship, whispering comfort in her ear as the engines slowed. Varn pushed a few buttons on the control panel. I can drop you on the outer rim, but that's it. If I stay too long, they'll shoot us down. Jack nodded, checking the small supply bag he'd packed. Tools, a broken communicator, and the data drive with Marcus's message. The ship jolted as it entered the atmosphere, cutting through thick clouds and lightning. The ground below was black stone and toxic rivers with giant walls circling the prison like a maze. Varn landed the ship on a flat ridge near the outer edge and opened the back ramp. This is it, human, Varn said. Walk straight and don't look back. Jack turned to Celia and Luma. You two stay here with Varn. It's too dangerous down there. But Celia shook her head firmly. No, Jack. I've waited too many years to stay behind now. I'm not leaving without him, she said, her voice steady. Luma stepped forward too, her small hand clutching Jack's sleeve. We're family now. Jack looked at both of them and gave a soft nod. Then we go together. The three of them stepped onto the dark rocks as the cargo ship rose and disappeared into the stormy sky. They moved fast, hiding behind boulders and twisted metal as search drones flew overhead. Every few minutes a loudspeaker echoed from the prison towers. All movement will be scanned. Unauthorized beings will be neutralized. Jack's eyes searched the horizon for an opening. Finally, they spotted a broken drainage pipe near the east wall of the compound. They crawled inside, moving slowly through wet tunnels filled with echoes and metal drips. At the end of the tunnel they reached a metal grate, and through it Jack saw human prisoners wearing torn uniforms and chains. One man stood out, tall, with gray hair and scars on his arms. It was Marcus. Jack's heart pounded. He's alive, Celia whispered, tears already forming. But the moment didn't last. A robotic guard walked past the prisoners, scanning each of them with red light. Marcus looked up for just a second and saw Jack behind the grate. He didn't react, but Jack saw the change in his eyes. Shock, then warning. Jack quickly pulled back. Something's not right, he whispered. He didn't look happy to see us. He looked scared. Celia looked confused. Why wouldn't he want to escape? Before they could think more, the tunnel shook. Lights flashed above them and a voice screamed through the prison intercom. Unauthorized presence detected. Lockdown initiated. They found us, Jack shouted. They crawled back the way. They came, but metal walls began sliding down behind them. Closing escape routes one by one, Jack pulled out a tiny explosive charge and placed it on the tunnel wall. Back up, he yelled. Boom! The wall burst open, and they ran into a storage bay filled with crates and broken machines. We have to find Marcus and get out before they seal the entire sector, Jack said, breathing heavily. Suddenly, a hidden door slid. Open at the end of the room, a tall prisoner stepped inside with a hood over his face. He pulled it down. It was Marcus, Dad. Luma cried. Marcus ran forward and hugged her, holding her like he never wanted to let go. Celia stood frozen, tears streaming. You're really here. Marcus turned to her, voice cracking. I never stopped thinking about you. But Jack saw something else in Marcus's eyes. Fear. They're watching everything, Marcus said quickly. They let me out because they knew you were coming. What? Jack asked. They want you to take something with you, Marcus said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small black cube, glowing faintly. Jack looked at it, confused. What is this? Marcus shook his head. I don't know, but they made me build it. It's a weapon, a signal. Something dangerous. Celia stepped back. They planned this? Marcus nodded. You have to destroy it. Don't let it leave this planet. But before Jack could answer, alarms blared louder. Dozens of guards stormed the hallway outside, all armed, all aiming their rifles at the door. We're surrounded, Jack said, gripping his blaster, and we're out of time. The air inside the storage bay turned heavy as the guards marched closer. Red lights flashed, shadows danced across the walls, and the high-pitched alarm never stopped screaming. Jack stood between Marcus and the door, blaster in hand, eyes locked. On the hallway, Celia clutched Luma tightly. Shielding her behind a stack of crates, Marcus held the black cube in his hand, the glow from it growing brighter with each passing second. They want this thing out in the galaxy, Marcus said, his voice shaking. But I don't know what it will do. Jack looked at the cube and back at the hallway. Then we can't let them have it. A loud crash echoed, metal boots slamming. The floor getting closer, Jack took a deep breath. Is there any other way out of here? Marcus pointed up. There's an old maintenance shaft above. I used it once to sneak food to others, and it leads to the outer ridge. Jack didn't hesitate. He climbed the stacked crates and pushed open the grate. Go, now, he shouted. Marcus lifted Luma up first, then helped Celia climb through. Before Marcus followed, he looked at Jack. Take this, he said, handing the cube to him. Jack stared at it. Why me? Because you're the only one who's still free, Marcus said. You're not broken like the rest of us. Jack nodded and tucked the cube into his vest. Just as Marcus pulled himself into the shaft, the guards burst through the door. Shots rang out, slamming into the metal walls. Jack crawled through the tunnel behind the others, heat and smoke chasing them like fire. They reached the top ridge where the ship had landed earlier, but it was gone. Varn wasn't waiting. He had run. The sky above roared with thunder, and the towers behind them were lighting up with energy pulses, preparing to fire. We can't stay here, Jack said, scanning the horizon. There has to be another way out. Then from the clouds a small shadow dropped. Another ship, old and rusted, but flying low. It was Kethos. The smuggler grinned through the open ramp, shouting, Didn't think I'd let you die so easy, did you, human? They ran toward the ship as plasma blasts hit the ground behind them. Jack was the last one up the ramp. As he climbed aboard, a drone shot grazed his leg, but he pulled himself in before the door slammed shut. Hold on, Kethos shouted, and the ship launched into the sky with fire trailing behind. Inside the ship, everyone sat on the floor, shaking, coughing, holding each other. Luma crawled into Marcus's lap and hugged him tightly. You really came back? She whispered. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I promised I would, didn't I? Celia held Marcus's hand with tears in her eyes. We waited, and we never stopped believing. Marcus looked at Jack. Thank you. For everything. Jack nodded, his voice low. We're not safe yet. He pulled out the cube and showed it to Kethos. We need to destroy this, Jack said. It's not just a weapon. It's something worse. Kethos frowned. You sure? Marcus nodded. They made me build it, but never told me what it does, only that it sends a signal that could wake something ancient. Kethos cursed under his breath. You humans always bring chaos, Jack smiled. We just don't like being pushed around. The smuggler turned the ship toward a dead star nearby. If you want to destroy it, Kethos said, we drop it into that star's core. Nothing survives there. Everyone agreed. Jack walked to the back of the ship where the launch chute was located. He looked at the cube one last time, the glow now almost too bright to look at. He thought of all the lives lost, the lies told, the years Celia and Luma had suffered. He thought of Marcus, broken but still alive, still fighting. Then, without another word, he dropped the cube into the chute. It fell through the sky, spinning, vanishing into the dead star's gravity. A few seconds later, a flash exploded in the distance, quiet, beautiful, and final. It was over. Back on the ship, silence filled the room. No more alarms, no more fear. Just a family finally whole again. Later, as they traveled toward a peaceful colony, planet, Luma sat next to Jack and whispered, "Will you stay with us?" Jack looked out the window at the stars. He had never stayed in one place too long, but this time he smiled. "Yeah," he said. "I think I will." Celia sat beside Marcus, her head on his shoulder, both of them staring at their daughter as she laughed for the first time in years. Jack leaned back, closed his eyes, and breathed in the quiet. For once, he wasn't running. For once, there was nothing chasing him, just a family, and the stars ahead.